All right, welcome everyone to the Comm Alumni Council Career Series. This series is hosted by the Comm Alumni Council and will feature various alumni who will share their career experiences and answer your questions. We will learn about different career opportunities available with the Comm degree. In this session, you'll hear directly from alumni about how they went from UCSB grad to their current job. And each session will feature a career spotlight with ample Q&A. And today we are very happy to welcome Jonathan Gruber. Did I pronounce that right, Jonathan?
That's correct. Yep, that's
Jonathan
right.
Gruber. And he'll be speaking about sales and finance. But meanwhile, if we could, let's go ahead and look at, so our first slide we have here. Oh, there we go. So on our second slide here, I'd like to share the schedule for upcoming events for future career sessions. So you'll see on December 14th, we have Shamara Carney, Director of Communications for Altro, and her topic will be communications. And then on January 11th, 2023, we have Allison Satelli, VP Events and Business Development for LA Sports and Entertainment Commission, and she'll be talking about event marketing. And then in March, on February 8th, 2023, we'll have Alejandro Zaragoza, who is the managing editor of Zendesk, and she'll be talking about content marketing. So please mark your calendar for these events, and all of these events will be recorded and posted on the Comm Department website and on the Comm Department YouTube channel, and we'll share the rest of the 2023 schedule in January. So I want to share the link to the Comm website and the YouTube channel. I'll do that during the chat or on the chat, so you can copy that during our session today. And then finally, I want to invite everyone to follow us on social media. We have a page on LinkedIn. It's a UCSB Department of Communication. And then we have a page on Instagram, UCSB Comm Alumni, and then on Facebook, UCSB Comm Alumni, and on Twitter, UCSB_Comm Alumni. So if you're not already a member of one of our social media areas, then please join. And now I'd like to introduce our speaker. You know his name, but let me give you his bio. He is a certified financial planner and managing director of Capstone Partners based in LA. And he brings 5 years of experience in the area of personal financial planning and wealth management since graduating from UCSB with a degree in communications in March of 2017. He's also currently pursuing his chartered financial consultant designation and Series 24 qualifications. During his undergrad, he volunteered as a marketing director for an on-campus nonprofit organization called Swipes for the homeless or for the houseless, as well as fundraising for the Special Olympics. So, Jonathan, take it away.
Right. Thank you, Wendy. I saw Leslie pop in there. Just wanted to give a quick shout out to Leslie. She's the one that has really kept me involved, or at least got me involved in the beginning and has kept me involved since then. So it's good to see you again,
Such
Leslie.
a pleasure.
Right. I've met Isaac before. We had a conversation about one of his comm classes a couple of weeks ago, maybe months ago.
Yeah, thank you for the help back then. Nice to see you here too.
Of course, man. Good to see you again. A couple other friendly faces on here, so it's good to be here. I'm going to share my screen. I put together a quick PowerPoint for us. So like Wendy mentioned, my name is Jonathan Gruber, and I'm here to talk to you about careers in finance and sales. At a high level, the idea behind, I think, this whole series and specific for my presentation is that there's a lot of career paths that you can take with a comm degree. When I joined the comm major back in my junior year, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I got into the communication major intentionally because of that. I felt like I could go a number of different directions as opposed to being in the econ accounting major like I was when I started school. Pretty clear path to Big Four, very structured career trajectory from there. And for some people, that's really awesome. But for me, that kind of scared me. I wanted to have a little bit more control over what I could do. I'll give you some background about my entrance into finance here in a minute, but first wanted to talk about my experience at UCSB. So I'm a bit of an anomaly in my family. The past 4 generations, everyone in my family has been to Penn State, all the way to my great-great-grandpa has been to Penn State. And I was the only one that toured the Santa Barbara campus. And, look at it on here. I fell in love with it. Immediately told my dad within 5 minutes of the campus tour that I was going to go to Santa Barbara. And, he tried to nudge me the opposite way, but I ended up going here and I don't regret it at all. So showing up, I did FSSP. So that's the freshman summer start program for those of you who aren't so familiar. So I was there a quarter early before all the other freshmen got here. So I remember driving up, seeing Henley Gate for maybe the second time, but for the first real time of I'm a student here, thinking this is just freaking awesome. And then I got really lost on campus for about 20 minutes trying to find the San Nick dorms, which is to the left. I ended up going to the right, drove all around IV, the right side of campus, but I didn't end up making it. I really liked FSSP. Coming from high school, I wasn't the most outgoing or social person. So I felt like coming to school with a smaller population of younger people made my transition into Santa Barbara a bit easier. Got a lot more confident since then, but I was a nervous wreck showing up to school on that first day. Created a lot of good relationships, and specifically in the Greek system, I met a number of people in Phi Sigma Kappa, which is my entrance into the Greek life system. I know Leslie is a fellow Greek member, Alpha Phi, if I recall correctly. So yes. I had a really good relationship with Alpha Phi while I was in Phi Sigma Kappa for a couple of years on campus. I attribute a lot of the relationships and opportunities that I've got on a personal and professional basis to the relationships that I created in the Greek life system. It provides a little bit more structure for activities and relationships. So the people that I was, in a pledge class with, of course, people I grew with at school that were older and younger than me, those are the people that I'm closest with right now. So one of the greatest experiences I had at school, and one that I don't know if I would go back and do it again. I don't know if I could handle that, but do not regret it whatsoever. And, very happy that I made it work. Addition to that, I did play lacrosse for about a half a year on the club team. I quickly realized that it was a lot more work than I was looking to put into. They really, really work hard to be successful, and they have a great program. But with where my head was at, it was a lot more of a kind of a pain in the butt, more so than enjoyable, like it had been when I was in high school. So I just politely, resigned from the team at that point and was able to focus on school and, volunteering, hanging out in IV, a number of different things. So Wendy mentioned I did work with swipes for the houseless while I was on campus. Really cool program where you could donate meal swipes, and the organization would take the value of those meal swipes, go translate that into food. We did a couple soup kitchens, couple donations, couple big events with a number of the nonprofits in the local area. So that was really fulfilling. And then Wendy also mentioned the Special Olympics. Our fraternity's, what was it called? Philanthropy event every year, our national one, was all about Greek Olympics. So the fundraising from that naturally went to the Special Olympics. So I was part of the planning and the philanthropy committee while I was in school, or while I was at Phi Sigma. And of course, living in IV was a blast, going from San Nick, moving into our chapter house with 35 other guys that were in a similar mindset as me. Was really fun, maybe even too much fun. I think that was probably the lowest point in my grades while I was at. Over time, got a little bit better. I lived on 6-5 block with 13 people in a 4-bedroom my junior year. And then I lived with, I think, 15 people in a 5-bedroom my senior year on 6-6 block of DP. And that was Oceanside, so we overlooked the water. So that was an experience second to none. We always joke that living by the beach as a college kid probably won't be back there for another couple decades, but we're working on getting back there. And one of the cool things I did towards the end of my time at Santa Barbara was going abroad. So I went through the UC EAP program. I did not want to give up my spring quarter at Santa Barbara, but my dad really pushed me to do it. Ended up being one of the greatest experiences ever. I did a split program between Madrid for 5 weeks, followed that with 5 weeks in Rome of actual classes and more structure. After that, my 5 best friends, or I guess my 4 best friends, met me in Rome on campus on the day of my final. We got in a bus and did another 5 weeks of just pure travel with no schooling requirements. So that was a blast. All right. So after all that, completed senior year, and miraculously, I graduated. It took a while, but March of 2017, I graduated with, we're all in the comm major here, degree in communication in March of 2017. Huge weight lifted off my shoulders, but I did not have a job yet at that point. I hadn't even really started looking. So I had that, oh crap moment. Now what am I going to do? Started to apply to some jobs. And at this point, after graduating, even applying to some jobs, finance had not even been on my radar at all. Sales was, definitely. I interviewed at a lot of big tech firms, a lot of small tech firms, and it was positioned like something pretty cool, seemed interesting, but I didn't feel all that passionate about the work. And I don't think that you need to 100,000% love what you do, but for me, it makes it a lot easier for me to be passionate and do good work if I really believe in the cause that I'm behind. So interviewed around, and I'm gonna kind of allude to something earlier, but the value of networking and the value of relationships on a professional and a personal basis, I would not have probably entered this business had I not had a relationship with my best friend at school, Trevor Barrett. His dad referred me into a finance firm down in Woodland Hills where I got my career started. So that was my introduction to finance. More evidence that you can do a lot more with a comm degree than just going into maybe marketing or journalism like most people might assume. I'm going to pause there for a second. Do you have any questions before I keep going? All right, we'll keep going. So AXA Equitable was the name of the first firm I started with. It was in Woodland Hills, California. At this point, I hadn't gotten the job yet, but I remember driving from Santa Barbara down to Woodland Hills, which is about an hour and a half in a suit that was way too big for me. It didn't fit all that well. I think I forgot my tie on the first interview as well. So I was kind of a mess getting started, but really connected well with the managing partner down in that office. We both played hockey in our previous lives. So that was a good connector. We actually ended up playing on a men's league at that point as well. Went through the full process and it seemed interesting. It was positioned to me as sales, but there's just a lot more to it. You're not going out and selling, a fridge, like a refrigerator or cloud software to a tech firm. There's a lot more that has to go into building a practice or a business within financial services, a book of business rather. So after I got that job, I went and studied for my Series 7 and my Series 66, which are the two FINRA financial industry license that allowed me to work and sell investment products to my clients. On top of that, the California insurance license. I actually took that exam. I was studying for it in Davidson during finals week when all my other friends were taking actual finals after I had graduated. So all that adding up, I was working as a financial consultant at AXA Equitable for about a year and a half. So being brand new into that industry, I didn't really know all that much about it, right? What are the different ways that firms grow, the different philosophies? And over time, I realized that my philosophy or my goal within that business didn't align so well with the firm I was at. Nothing bad at all to say about the firm. Great firm, great leadership, great products. But I knew for me, I needed to build with a firm with a more philosophical alignment for the long term. Also with the long-term goal of getting into this managing director role, I needed to be at a firm that I believed in. So about a year in, I just went back on my LinkedIn messages and responded to every recruiter who had reached out over the previous year. Ended up setting up a number of interviews. I think I spoke to 5 firms before I decided that Capstone Partners was the best firm for me. And it got blurry like just now. It was perfect before I pulled it up. So excuse me on that. Like you can see up here, Capstone Partners is the name of the firm. We're founded down in Newport Beach. I work out of our Century City, Los Angeles office, which is just east of Santa Monica, just west of downtown LA. So it is a little bit blurry on here, so excuse that. But CFP stands for Certified Financial Planner. It's been a goal of mine to get this pretty much since I started day one. And the philosophy of a CFP aligns really well with my firm and with myself personally. So it's a natural trajectory to get that designation and earn it. Gives a specialty in investment management, retirement planning, insurance, income tax, and estate planning. So pretty complicated stuff for some people. I've gotten to know it slowly over time. I did a program at UCLA to get that designation. It ultimately took a 6-hour test to get through to that. in this industry, a financial advisor can be a very vague term. So I needed to have something on there that really solidified what I did, what my role is, and the philosophy that I used for my client-facing role. Top of that, when you mentioned CHFC, Chartered Financial Consultant, I actually passed that exam on Monday. So there's a background check that's required. I assume we're all good unless something from my Ivy days pops up. I'm just kidding. Once that goes through, I'll be able to add that designation to my name as well. That does similar concepts, but takes that a step forward for small businesses and blended families. So divorced families, essentially blended families, kids living with parents that might not be their own. Within the market that I'm working in, those concepts are really relevant. So I want to be sure that I could add that to my resume. So everything I've talked about so far has been in my actual advisory / client facing role. My role now is a lot different. It's always been my goal to get into, I guess my eventual goal is to run my own company, whether that's stepping in a leadership role, owning Capstone, breaking off and doing my own thing, or stepping into a different established firm. My goal is to run a company. And so the stepping stone for me to get from advisor into owner of a company, the next step is right what you see there is managing director. So I still have my book of clients. I still meet with clients for about maybe 10 or 15% of my time. Majority of my role right now is spent growing out our footprint from an advisory standpoint in the local market, which is basically Long Beach up through Woodland Hills. So I interview every new candidate that comes through our door. I'm going out and sourcing opportunities. I have a number of really good referral partners that send me really good candidates that I can interview, and hopefully we are a good fit for what our advisors are looking for. Big stepping stone for me to get from more local leadership to maybe running a couple offices to the eventual goal of running an entire company. This is the trajectory that I personally would like to be on. And it's funny, I kind of joke, and I don't know if this is actually funny or not, but in what I do, so much of what I do is just talking to other people, whether it's interviewing a potential candidate to be an advisor or running a discovery meeting with a new client. All of what I do is just asking really good, open-ended questions to extract information from people. So all the other licenses I have, I think I use my comm degree a lot more consistently than any of those things that I had listed off earlier. So moving on, what is the relationship to sales, right? You think finance, that can mean a lot of different things. Related to sales specifically, the first thing in really any sales is prospecting. Going out and finding business in whatever capacity that is. If you're in tech sales, you're going out and finding a company, sell the cloud software to. In my role, it's going out and finding clients in the marketplace to either do business with, help them with their financial planning, their investments, their insurance, retirement planning, so on and so forth. Or in my role as managing director, going out and finding candidates that might be a good fit for the philosophy that we're building with in the local market, right? Every piece of sales usually has a component of prospecting, which is honestly the hardest part about anything. You can learn how to make a sales pitch. You can learn about product knowledge, but what really makes or breaks a good salesperson is going out and finding people to actually do business with. I can know everything there is to know about a product, but if I have nobody to present it to, I'm going to a different role. So after we find that potential client or that potential candidate, it's all about the discovery meeting, or what we call internally a fact finder. You can't make a sale, or people say that the sale is not made in the actual pitch itself. It's made in the discovery meeting, where you're figuring out as much information as you can about the candidate, about the prospect, about the potential person that you're going to sell to. So then you come in with your product as more of a solution, as opposed to just pitching something that might not even make sense for someone's financial situation or career situation. So I mentioned this earlier, but asking good open-ended questions to extract info to come in with a solution to that problem, right? Sales is all about making someone's life easier. That can mean a lot of different things, but effective presentation skills as well come into play at the tail end of a sales process. And then from there, it's all about relationship management, right? If you get somebody as a client, or even if you don't get somebody as a client, most people will need something that my firm does at some point. If it's today, that's preferred. If it's a year down the line, if it's 2 years down, if it's 10 years down the line, most people will need a financial advisor at some point in their life. So keeping the relationship strong, checking in over the holidays, birthdays, whatever it is those intangible things that might not feel like sales, it's more relationship management. That is what really will make a effective salesman, not just for the short term, but more so for the long term. And especially in an industry like ours, where the topics are kind of uncomfortable. Money, arguably the biggest taboo subject in our country. You're talking about insurance, that's talking about death and disabilities and long-term care events. So you need to feel, your clients need to feel that they have a good relationship with you and they can trust you. Other than that, you're just a salesman that's trying to sell them something. So that's something that I've gotten really good at, which I don't think I'm the best advisor out there, but I'm really good at keeping relationships strong. And that's led to a lot of success for me in the long term. All right. So wrapping this up, I wanted to go over some general professional advice that I've come across in my time and that I've read in books, heard from my mentors in the past. I mentioned this earlier, but the value of networking is massive. Everybody on here is a gaucho, I think. Might be like one person that's not, but everybody on here is a gaucho. For me personally, like Isaac, you emailed me out of the blue and said, hey, can I have an hour of your time? Absolutely. Right. I don't know if every gaucho is going to be that like immediately generous, but most will. And so you can't be afraid to ask for help. Right. I asked Leslie for a lot of help. She was the most generous with her time. And most people, just based on the fact that you have that UCSB connection with them, will prompt them usually to take that meeting or take that call or respond to your email. So not just within UCSB, but leverage as many relationships as you can. If you're looking to get into marketing and your dad's best friend owns a marketing agency, go talk to them, right? People want to help people that they have I don't say a vested interest in, but most people want to help others. And especially if there's a personal connection or relationship between those two people, 9 times out of 10, they will. Especially if they got this. When you're applying to jobs, and this is kind of a pain, but it's a very competitive marketplace right now for hiring, you got to submit a lot of applications. You can't just submit one and hope that one goes through. Send out a lot. Add a cover letter, tighten up resume. You just got to put your feelers out there a lot. I helped my brother who just graduated from Penn State. I think I had him send out 150 applications. Like the 150th one was the one that got accepted. And it ended up being an engineering job at Gulfstream. So it was absolutely worth it, but it took a lot of effort on both of our parts for him to get to that point. And for a good quality company, they're going to be very selective. And so when you're looking at a pool of this many people for one job or this many people for a couple of jobs, you need to, I think this was stand out. I'll go back to follow up in a minute. Got to stand out. You don't necessarily need to be better. You just need to be different. When people are sitting down and thinking, who am I going to choose for this job? You got to be the first person that comes to their mind. So if it's something funky on your resume or a cool question that you ask, something that is kind of out of the blue, you want people to think about you when they're about to make a decision about you. One of the best candidates I'm interviewing right now, and we're actually have her in background check right now, not really the strongest candidate, but she had the most unique resume I have ever seen. And that was something that I noticed right off the get-go, and I ended up getting her the job. So got to stand out, got to be different. Good doesn't sell, but different does sell. I'll go back to follow-up. When you're interviewing with people, good follow-up is key as well. You interview somebody on Zoom or in person, got to send them an email right after that. It's one of those things that might not seem like that big of a deal, but if that's the deal breaker for certain people, I know I personally feel great when somebody emails me after an interview. People like that. And it's, again, one of those things that helps you stand out. If somebody does you a favor, send them a thank you, and send them a thank you after you meet with that person. If I refer you to Leslie, you have a good conversation with Leslie, send me a thank you, send Leslie a thank you. It's a little bit exhaustive, especially if you have that volume of applications, like I mentioned up here, but it does add up to making an effective candidate move through a process more quickly than just a resume on stack of another 400 resumes. Go above and beyond when you are in an actual job as well. I'm a big fan of work-life balance. I think it's absolutely crucial. That said, try not to say no to that many things within reason. If a boss needs you to do something or a partner wants to bring you onto a project that you maybe have the bandwidth for, maybe don't, as long as it's within reason, go out of your way to be extraordinary in the workplace. People notice that. And hard work is the universal currency of respect in the professional marketplace. Professional workplace. People see that. It's the best way to keep moving up in a company, getting good recommendations if you choose to leave and go to another company. The people that I'm closest with at my firm are the ones that are working hard alongside me, right? And those are the ones that are getting a lot of the opportunities, not only internally, but externally. And lastly, this is a really small one, but spell people's names correctly when you're writing them a message or writing them a letter. I can't tell you how many people put an H before the N in my name, and it's not the biggest deal, but it puts a bad taste in my mouth about that candidate. And if that's the make or break for putting someone one direction or the other, those small things, I've mentioned this before, they do add up over time. And that's all I had. Ready for some questions.
Yeah, if I could start the first one, I would just want to know typically what would happen within a client that is looking for you. How do you create their investment objective, and how does that conversation look like?
Good question. So it's all about asking questions to understand what's going on in somebody's head. So a lot of people will come in with actually not that many people, but some people will come in with some goals. Hey, I want to retire at 62. I want to live off of X amount of income. I want to be able to take 3 vacations. I want to send my kid to UCSB. I want to buy that house. I want to do whatever. Some people come in with goals, and that's what helps us determine what's the investment strategy, what's the insurance strategy that makes sense. Because if you tell me I want to buy an investment property in 6 months and I want to retire in 40 years, those strategies of building wealth and creating wealth and preserving wealth are going to be a lot different. So going back to the slide about prospecting, discovery meeting, that's the most important part about working with the clients. Then you can come in with a relevant solution. Because I could tell you everything there is about the products at my firm until I'm keeling over exhausted, but only a small fraction of that's going to be relevant to you. So getting to know what's going on for you allows me to make a more effective presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, Jonathan, you have such great wisdom for someone so young. I'm wondering, did you learn all this advice on your own just through experience, or did you have a mentor or someone that really helped you learn all this great advice that you're sharing with us today?
It's a combination of a lot of what you just said. I didn't really start reading pleasure books until honestly March of 2020, when I didn't really have all that much ability to do much else. And I think I've read more books in the past 2.5 years than I have, or pleasure books. Not that I did many of the readings at Santa Barbara, but the more pleasure books in the past 2.5 years than I probably did in the rest of my life combined. Some were fun. A lot of them, or I guess the majority of them more so, were all about personal development, and self-help is kind of a weird word, but it's all about just getting better as an individual, as a partner, as a professional. So lots of books, keeping a journal of things that pop into my head. But yeah, I've absolutely had mentors in my whole life, even if it's not as structured as maybe having like a mentor-mentee relationship like we're putting on for the comm department, but general people that are further ahead of me in life have had a big impact on my career trajectory, getting me into finance, getting referred to the company like Capstone, creating the relationships internally that have given me that development and that different perspective that maybe not as many 27-year-olds get, but just taking it all in from the people around me that are honestly doing it better than me and doing exactly what they did.
Thanks, Jonathan. Leslie, did you have a question?
I do. So I know we've talked about a lot of different things, but I've never really asked you specifically what it's like for you at your age holding that position in a prestigious company. So I'm wondering, were there classes that you took at UCSB that helped prepare you for how to partner with people who are older than you?
I would say specifically, yeah, organizational comm was probably the most interesting class that I took at school. But in general, just the communication curriculum in general. I speak to some of my engineering buddies from school and my bio friends from school, and they're all coming out with very tangible, quantitative knowledge about their field. And coming out of school, I didn't feel like I had that tangible, not really something you can hold, but like I couldn't go back and think of, oh, that theory or that idea makes sense here, but just a general better ability to communicate with other people, I think has led to a lot of opportunities for me. And then specific to OrgComm, just communicating internally within a company is very different than interacting with a romantic partner or family or just a general acquaintance. So getting to understand not necessarily how to be different, but modify your communication style for one setting versus another. All that really did add up to accomplishing what you'd said.
Jonathan, are there any specific like tools or ways that you keep track of either like prospective clients or people that you have been in contact with to like remind yourself to follow up or build that relationship?
Mm-hmm. So my role is confusing. So I have my client-facing role and my managing director role, and I have two different systems for both. Salesforce on the recruiting and management side, and it's called Advisor 360 for our client-facing side. That's a proprietary software that our parent company invested a couple $2 billion in 2 years ago to basically aggregate every single client system that we use. So it's the client data, the application system, the one-click reviews, everything comes together as opposed to the 12 or 15 different logins that we had previously.
Got it. And then so for example, for your like younger brother, as he was looking for jobs and meeting people, did you have any advice to him on how to make sure that he's keeping those contacts? You talked about following up and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe not as structured, but the biggest thing for him was just the volume of applications. I had the same issue when I was applying where he'd send out 5 and be like, all right, I got 5 out. I'm probably good. One of them will get back to me. And then 3 weeks later, not even an email response. So just hounding him on getting not just 5 out, but 5 out a day or 5 out a week at least. And like I said, he eventually got to that goal of getting to that job with Gulfstream, but it took him 6 months and, a couple hundred applications to get to that point.
A lot of applications.
Yeah. And I helped him write a lot of the cover letters.
Were they all, though, that's a good question. So with the cover letters, were they all just kind of like slot in the company name and send it off? Or did you adjust it to the company? How did you approach that?
So for him, he made some small tweaks, but he had one for like an electrical engineering job, a civil engineering job, an industrial engineering job. And he modified it like that. I tried to get him to, like I said earlier, be more different in that cover letter and just be a little bit more outrageous. Might not be the right word, but it might be the right word. But he's an engineer. He doesn't exactly have that pizzazz, maybe like a comm student might.
Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
No, yeah, you start. Go ahead.
Well, I had another question about all of your experiences as an undergrad. Was there any one that you did that you would find the most valuable to you, that you use what you learned doing that in your current position?
I would say a leadership role within FISIG helped out because it's a different type of management, but herding 120 often intoxicated college kids was really difficult to do as, philanthropy chair and social chair. So nobody's drunk at our office, but just being able to interact and lead a group of people that might be a number of years older than me or younger than me, and being able to empathize up and down. Cause I'm not like a boss of anybody, but I oversee an office that has some 40-year-olds, some 50-year-olds that it takes a lot of good communication to not overstep the age gap, but also be in enough of a power position to get done what we need to get done as an entire unit.
Yeah, that's probably a really overlooked benefit of being in the Greek system, is that you have all these leadership opportunities.
Yeah.
So did you do those 2 roles at the same time or in consecutive years?
It was one after the other.
Mm.
Let me ask you one question though. What, for instance, are the challenges in dealing with your clients? Things that sometimes are really difficult to resolve, and how do you deal with them?
The hardest part is when without a shadow of doubt what somebody should be doing, with professional experience and a good discovery meeting, a good analysis and a good presentation, and people just don't move forward. And, you know, it's on us to get people to recognize that. So I'm never blaming. Sometimes I blame the client, but that all circles back to me. And if they don't realize that there's an issue, I'm not doing my job as a professional there. Some people, it's just not the right time to work with us. And having that balance of patience and persistence is really key, because you got to be persistent enough to actually move the needle and get business done. If I was just very passive, I wouldn't have any clients. But you also can't get to the point of being pushy and being able to walk that back a bit more when you can tell that it's not the right time for a client. That's where advisors get in hot water, where they want to keep it moving forward, clients pushing back. You get, it's called commission breath is what we sometimes call it, where you're just trying to get it done, but clients just aren't seeing it. I would say that's probably one of the harder pieces of it.
Jonathan, you talked about in college the balance you did between your social life with the fraternity and doing lacrosse and and then with your studies and then going abroad and having friends meet with you and traveling. Now it sounds like you're so involved with your career. You read career books for pleasure. On top of your pleasure books, you have some cats, you're working so hard. Do you have time to balance your personal life with all you're doing with your career?
I do. Yeah, I have a girlfriend I live with. We have 2 cats. So I think there's a lot of cat owners on here. And I still hang out with my friends a fair amount, but one of the biggest focuses for me right now is my career. I'm not maybe my girlfriend would call me a workaholic, but I do have an emphasis on work-life balance. So I'm able to do that. But over time, what I've realized is that I really do enjoy different things than I did back then. Waking up on a Saturday, going to the gym and reading a book for a couple hours. I don't know, it might be kind of lame, but I really enjoy it. Whereas in IV, I would wake up on a Saturday, go toss some beer eye or go to the beach, which was just very different from what my preferences are now.
You mentioned that, you know, after graduating, you didn't really know what to do and you were applying everywhere. And then you got a referral to, I believe it was your friend's father. And what exactly brought you to not only just enjoy being a financial advisor, but also just stay within the industry and thrive in it?
Yeah. The 2 of the biggest things that drove me to the career and out of what kept me in the career is that this job is a really cool intersection of being able to impact people's lives directly in a positive way, you know, if you do good work, and one where you can make a lot of money doing it. Right. And I'm not as focused on the bottom line, but I do want to build a lifestyle for myself and my future family. And I knew I needed to be in somewhere where I can have a good lifestyle, flexibility. I make my own calendar. I have a couple meetings a week that I have to report to, but for the most part, I decide how I spend my day. And so looking forward, when I have kids and I'm married and I have other responsibilities, I want to have the ability to go say, hey, I'm going to take today off, or I'm going to cut out today for 2 hours. I wouldn't be able to have that if I was working in a lot of jobs out there. So what it took to kind of get there, it took a while for me to really get my practice up and running and learn as much of the business as I needed to be a self-sustaining advisor. But what that's led to is some pretty good flexibility in the life that I have right now. And I know that's just going to compound over time.
And of course, everybody here understands what a vast understatement that was. It took a little time. And most people at your age are still trying to figure out whether to, you know, move away from home or something. So you've accomplished it, and you had a vision and you followed that, but you made it happen. It takes a long time for a lot of people to do that. And so again, just really congratulations.
Thank you.
Hi, so I have a question. Considering, you know, you're so young in your role and having to stand out among others, what made you, or how did you kind of distinguish yourself from others? You know, other what's the word? Like elder influences and just other people in your company. What made you stand out and kind of other people take you seriously? And how did you kind of navigate that?
Yeah, good question. For the most part, it was just the work ethic and showing up every day. We have a lot of flexibility, even before COVID, to be hybrid or be in the office 100% time, remote 100% of the time. What I found is that I not only learn more effectively in person, but also just being present around 10, 15, 20-year veteran advisors, the leadership team that's running the company. I felt that I gained a lot just by overhearing conversations, being able to pop in and ask a question as opposed to having to schedule a call. That also led to a lot of actual client opportunities for me, where, advisors up here, they're not going to take on a client that's, not that large of a client, but for a brand new advisor, I was taking those all day. And our advisor population within Century C specifically is some of the best in the country. So there's a lot of those smaller referrals that would come in, children of their bigger clients that might not be to the point of working with the top advisor yet. So that gave me a lot of opportunities in that direction. The designations I got, CFP, CHFC, those on top of that as well. The CHFC isn't that complicated of a test, but the CFP really is. And in that field, that adds a lot of, I would say, credibility to my name behind that. And being in this business really young, I knew I had to do a lot more than somebody that might be 35 or 40 coming into this. So I'd say in internal networking.
No, that's great to know. And then another question I had was, considering your role is very much client facing, what kind of helped you to develop that relationship with them? Was it more of the follow-up or even just that conversation you have with them? What kind of led to that connection to have them continue that relationship and to find that type of value in what you offer?
Got it. So on the very front end of a relationship, everything that we do is referral based. I don't do any cold calling. I'm not door knocking businesses. I'm definitely not door knocking in neighborhoods. So moving to LA, I didn't have all that many people that I knew, but I had good relationships with the people that I knew, and they wanted to see me be successful. So I was getting referrals. I was building my network. I was building my practice, building my book of clients. So that's why it took a while to get started, but slowly it increases over time. People start to send me referrals without me even having to ask them, as opposed to me having to kind of hound people for referrals like that. Random joint emails. Hey, this is Leslie. She needs help with her planning. Help her out. Or the random calls. Hey, I'm friends with Leslie. She mentioned you're a good advisor. Can you help me out? Those types of things started to happen a lot more. So when you start the relationship off from a referral, as opposed to a cold call or a cold marketing, there's an intrinsic amount of trust that's already built when the introduction comes from a trusted source. And then from there, just keeping relationships strong, following up on the holidays. I like to send gifts. Can't send that expensive gifts just due to compliance reasons with my firm. But, a bottle of wine. Client of mine had just bought a new meat smoker and I got him a $20 gift card to Omaha Steaks. And he sent me a really cool picture of this brisket that he cooked. It was a cool little thing that only cost me $20, but I feel like that guy's going to be a client for life now.
Perfect. No, that was great. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Jonathan? Okay, well, if not, thank you, Jonathan, for sharing your wisdom and your expertise and your knowledge with us this evening.